My name is Peter, and today I'll be analyzing Disney's 1998 animated film Mulan as it pertains to muted group theory. Muted group theory was first conceptualized by Oxford anthropologist Edward Ardenner and Shirley Ardenner, and greatly expanded upon by University of Illinois professor Charis Camare. This theory was born from the realization that language systems were created and maintained by the dominant groups of society. The logical outcome of this realization is that groups of lower social standing are routinely devalued or silenced within public discourse. These discounted people are referred to as muted groups and are defined on page 461 of the textbook as, quote, people belonging to low power groups who must change their language when communicating publicly. Thus, their ideas are often overlooked, end quote. Women are routinely the largest of these muted groups in almost every society and language, so much so that Kramer postulates that language is literally a man-made creation. She continues this line of thinking on page 460 of the textbook as saying, man-made language aids in defining, depreciating, and excluding women, end quote. Because men have historically held power, language the world over has been shaped to reflect male experiences and serve male interests. This leaves women without an adequate avenue to voice their own realities and ideas. The consequences of a fully man-made language system are on full display in Mulan. The entire initial concept of what constitutes value to society is constructed through masculine definition and values. A woman's value is achieved solely through marriage and domestic fealty, whereas men can achieve success through a wide variety of lifestyles. Even the main motivating factor of the movie, the imperial conscription decree, reinforces this gendered language. Quote, one man from every family must serve in the imperial army. End quote. In this context, the vocabulary presents values like citizenship, duty, and public service as inherently masculine and specifically excludes women before they could even attempt to participate. In addition to controlling the behavior of muted groups, controlling the vocabulary of a language could shape what is important to society at large. Kramer touches on this idea on page 461 of the textbook as, quote, because of their political dominance, the men's system of perception is dominant, impeding the free expression of a woman's alternative models of the world, end quote. This is again seen in Mulan as she attempts to find alternatives to her father's conscription into the army. He immediately silences her by shouting, quote, I know my place, it is time you learned yours, end quote. Here Mulan possesses an alternative model of honor and duty based on protecting her father. However, the language and society presented in the film lack the vocabulary necessary to convey female alternatives, which leads to Mulan's ideas being dismissed outright. Being unable to adequately express who you are leads to an interesting phenomenon and is one of the most important concepts within muted group theory, called the translation process. The translation process is expressed by Kramer on page 464 of the textbook as, quote, in order to participate in society, women must transform their own models in terms of the received male system of expression, end quote. In practice, what this means is that women and other media groups are constantly putting in additional effort to translate the words they speak, the same as if translating between different languages. The consequences of this effect are extremely detrimental for the media group's ability to communicate, and can help explain why media groups have a difficult time increasing their status within society. Having the additional task of translating your communication means that you can never fully express your thoughts and feelings. Mulan showcases this phenomenon in a literal sense. To save her father and demonstrate her capabilities, Mulan must completely transform herself into a masculine figure. She literally becomes another person, Ping, by adopting masculine speech patterns, humor, and physical mannerisms. In the film, Mulan sings, quote, when will my reflection show who I am inside, end quote. This song and phrase speak to the fact that in the confines of her society, there is a fundamental impossibility of expressing her authentic self. Even when the translation process is overcome, the muted group theory presents another barrier to equality, gatekeepers. Gatekeepers are defined in the textbook on page 463 as, quote, editors and other arbiters of culture who determine which books, essays, poetry, plays, film scripts, etc. will appear in mass media, end quote. Gatekeepers are particularly devastating for media groups because they can dismiss a person even when the undeniable evidence of worth and value is presented. In the film, despite saving the army and defeating the Hun invasion, Mulan is immediately dismissed when her gender is revealed. Her commander says, quote, "You don't belong here, Mulan. Go home," end quote. Later, when she tries to warn the men that multiple Hun warriors survived, her knowledge is dismissed by the gatekeepers despite the large amount of evidence that she should be taken seriously. Understanding that many of the language systems we use have mechanisms inherent within them that silence marginalized voices is by far the most important thing that muted group theory offers to the world at large. Cremaray herself understands this and says on page 469 that, quote, "The consciousness raising fostered by muted group theory could prod them to quit using words in a way that preserves inequalities of power," end quote. Understanding that a problem exists is always the first step to solving it, and muted group theory is the first step towards creating language systems that serve all speakers equally. Thank you.